ReliaQuest mental performance coaches Dr. Nicole Detling and Derin McMains interview top performers across multiple industries to unpack the strategies and the mindset they use to get the job done. Welcome to No Show Dogs, powered by ReliaQuest. Hey, welcome back to the No Show Dogs podcast, powered by ReliaQuest. My name's Derin McMains. I'm ReliaQuest Director of Mental Performance, and I'm alongside our founder and CEO, as always, Brian Murphy. Murph.
D-Mac, great
welcome
to be
back.
with you.
Yeah, welcome back. Hey, today we're going to go back in the vault a little bit.
Okay.
To pull out a really important lesson that I think a lot of entrepreneurs, business leaders probably struggle with, and it's this idea of like when to pivot.
Yeah.
Like when do we make that decision to really turn away and go do something else? And to set us up for this, I want to just kind of share ReliaQuest story. You can correct me along the way if I get this wrong, but ultimately we're going to go in 2012. ARR was roughly $6 to $6.5 million.
Just revenue. We weren't recurring revenue there, so that's an important factor.
Okay,
it's just revenue.
Revenue,
yeah.
6 to 6.5 mil. Okay.
Yeah.
Company was roughly 20 to 22 people at this time.
Ish, somewhere in there. Yeah.
Ish. Okay. In the middle of 2012, with roughly 20 to 22-ish people, revenue 6 to 6.5 million, you decide to make a big time pivot and shut down an entire stream of revenue, right? Shut it down and go 100% into cybersecurity. Now, I want to give a little bit more context here. 4 to 5 people at the time were like, this ain't never work, Murph. They quit. Yeah. They didn't see it, right? Yeah. So if you do the math, that's roughly 20 to 25% of your workforce left telling you this is not going to work. But in 18 months, you were selling up to roughly $10 million, right? So obviously it did work, and then you look where we're at now and where we're continuing to go. So I say all that. How do you know when to pivot, or how did you know, and maybe you didn't know, but at the time you believed it was the right thing? Like, walk people through, because that is a big time decision.
Yeah, I think you got to look back, though, and we started in 2007. I had this idea of what we were going to do. We got out of the gate late 2007. In the 2008, we were doing well. And then, the world ended. You get around the Great Recession, right? You start to have major financial institutions going out of business. We were doing a lot of work for large enterprises, and so they were just canceling these contracts that we had because they just shut down spending. Their stock is getting crushed. And we started doing these small little contracts of just information assurance contracts on the side. Didn't know anything about it. They're for military. We were a sub to a sub to a sub, so knew nothing about it, didn't have clearances, didn't anything, and some people showed us grace along the way. And information assurance is what the military called cyber before they deemed it cyber, right? And so it's really how we got into cybersecurity. So all of this started happening from 8 to 9 to 10, but when we're in that kind of sub to a sub to a sub role, it didn't take a mathematician to know that was a tough business. Most of the people that win these large government contracts have big, like, contracting offices that are writing RFPs and responding. They're former military. They have relationships, and that we didn't have any of that, right? And so we were pretty far down the trough of profitability, but we were learning a lot. And so when you look at the business at the time, we were selling a lot, but the margins on it weren't great. We were learning a lot. And then it became, okay, well, this doesn't feel sustainable. Now, at the time, hey, we're winning fastest. I always laugh when I see like the fastest 100 company designation or the fast 50 or fast 100 or whatever. It's usually like Chambers or some group will do the award. I always laugh because it's like, how many of them don't know it's over yet? Like, you can grow 1,000% when you're going from 10 million to whatever, like or 0 to 1.5 million. So I'm like, well, but for us, we were doing all these things, getting all these designations, and as an entrepreneur, not many people start a business that grows to 5 million, 10 million, and gets it to that level. But what I did know is it didn't make sense. It wasn't something that we could scale and could make it repeatable. And I think the important part of what we've always done around here is not drink our own Kool-Aid, right? Like, we have to be self-aware. My big thing in life is to be accountable, and accountability starts with self-awareness. And so being truly honest and being able to step out of yourself and look at the business. And we looked at the business at the time, I did, and I just said, this isn't like there's no there. Like we're going to run out of runway when these contracts start to slow down even more. And they were. The margins were compressing. The primes were taking more of the work. The subs that we were getting work from, they were keeping more of the work. So there's no, I wasn't a rocket scientist, but I looked at what we were learning. And on the information assurance side, we were doing some really interesting stuff at the time with a technology called ArcSight. And so it was like, well, we know how to do this. Can we go do that in a commercial world where we know how to do it? So we got on planes and went and walked around some conferences and just started to understand how those applications are being leveraged in corporate environments and made the turn. But at the time that I said it, people were pretty comfortable in the company. We were growing. We had some external accolades. You're hiring more people. We could have just kept drinking that Kool-Aid and stayed there. And hey, maybe we'd still be in business today. Maybe we'd be in a $5 to $7 million or $10 million company, and I could call myself an entrepreneur and a small business owner. But that wasn't what I was trying to do. I actually have always hated the name startup and the name small business. Like your goal is to be called one of those things as less amount of time as possible, right? For the shortest amount of time possible. Like, so people are like, we're a startup. How long have you been in business? 10 years. Well, we want to graduate out of that, right? Let's outgrow that. So for me, it was like, hey, our mission is to like, what problem are we solving? And it was a pretty easy pivot when you looked at, we're good at something and there's a better economic model to go do that something in another area, time to make a change. And what that takes is courage. I had to take myself off a payroll again, go into debt again. I didn't raise capital for the first 9 years, and we actually we built our first intellectual property, built our first technology during this time frame. So not only was I financing the payroll that was shutting down this revenue line, walking away from it, spinning up a new one, but I was paying money I didn't have to build a product that I thought would help us in the future. And so, hey, that takes guts. It takes a little bit of crazy. But what it does is it takes a lot of just self-awareness of like what I'm doing now isn't going to get me to where I'm capable of being. And to the outside world, 15, 10 million, 6 million, 8 million, that seems great to certain people. To me, it was just not good enough. So that allows you to make that call.
No Show Dogs is brought to you by ReliaQuest, a global leader in cybersecurity. ReliaQuest helps enterprise cybersecurity teams contain threats in minutes with its AI-powered security operations platform, Gray Matter. ReliaQuest makes security possible for the most trusted enterprise brands in the world. Learn more at ReliaQuest.com. But you always talk about like, why not us and how good can I be?
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's been the thing around chasing possible and the thing that really drives you on where 10 million isn't good enough, 15 million isn't good. Right. It's like, well, how good can I be? Right. And that forces you into a space of self-awareness, because if you're really trying to figure out how good can you be, then that means you're going to ask yourself a lot of questions, right? Which promotes accountability, humility, like all the things that come from just, I think it's such a great question that you ask yourself but like, self-awareness is built sometimes on feedback from others, right? So I think about the quarter of the workforce, quote unquote, a quarter of your workforce left saying like, this ain't going to work. Like, how'd you push through that?
Those things are tough. It's be easy for me to sit here and say, oh, they were wrong and they didn't get it. No, you go home and you're like, 20% left. Like, do they know something I don't?
Sure.
I mean, you have that self-doubt. Self-doubt carries you everywhere, but you go back to why'd you make the decision? And that's why I've always believed in starting with what problem am I solving for? Like, remove emotion out of the decision. What's the problem I'm solving for? Well, in our current path of margin compression, the current way we win business, all of those things are compressing. Like, all of those things are becoming harder. Now I look at what we're excelling at here, right? How do I do that in a better and different way that makes us more needed? So I get back to that and I realize, okay, those 4 or 5 people made a choice. That sucks. I would have loved them to stay on, right? But it's probably the right choice for them in the right moment. And I've got to stay focused on the decision that I made because I understand the problem I'm solving for. So if you have a decision-making kind of process, which I do, I always start with a what problem am I solving for. It allows you to remove the emotion around really feeling hurt when 4 people stand up and say, hey, you're crazy. I'm going to go do something more amazing or whatever. And, okay, you did. That's great. And they were right to do that. And we were right to make the change that we did. And there's no winner in that, right? Everybody's got to make their own choice.
Sure. And it was about this time, though, that Joe Partlow joined, right? Yeah. And so I definitely want to bring him into this conversation. At least you talk about Joe in regards to, because when I think about making a big decision like this, making a decision to pivot, not only do you recognize like, hey, is this sustainable or not, but also like, do I have the team to be able to like do this new thing? And so you talked just a little bit about Joe's role in that and how he helped give you confidence to continue like going down this new path.
Yeah, I mean, Joe and I were talking about it, and a lot of people don't realize, like, Joe is my wife's oldest brother, right? So we're at Thanksgiving in his home in Fort Lauderdale. They had just had, 2 twins. Joe and Aaliyah just had 2 twins, and I'm telling them the pivot I'm making, and so I get this call like a week later. He's like, "Hey, I'm coming to Tampa. I'm coming to work at ReliaQuest." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, man, I thought about what you're doing. We got to go target this. Because Joe was always in and around cybersecurity in the early stages, like that early kind of hacker community. He's just a brilliant technologist. And so he's always tinkering. He's like, yeah, I'm in. I'm like, Joe, I don't, you understand, like, I'm not on payroll. Like, I'm financing payroll with credit card. He's like, okay, well, what could you pay me? And I'm like, I don't know. He told me what he was making at the time. I'm like, nowhere near that. So I think he took like a 70% pay cut, like crazy, insane, right? Newborn
with kids,
newborn, right? They're
twins,
like 6 months old, right? Okay, They had lived in this home for, I don't know, 10 plus years in Miami, out in Weston, and he's like, I'm moving up to Tampa, selling my home, and we're gonna rent a home, and he did. I mean, talk about that sacrifice, but he had such a clear alignment with what we were trying to do and where we went, and believed in it so much that he was burning his lifeboats. I mean, you think about that. There was no way back for him. And I remember my wife, because she'd seen, we'd been in business now for a while. It's hard, right? I mean, Renee and I had gone through, it's brutal. I mean, all the things that we had to sacrifice and tough things we've been through. And I just remember she's like, hey, this is my brother. Like, you 2 knuckleheads better not mess this up. Like, I don't want to. You better win. Like, it was kind of not like the Rocky II speech where Adrian wakes up and says win in like a loving, caring way. It was like, I'm gonna show you the knife, and I'm gonna use this on you if you don't make this work. And so Joe came, and I think he traveled like, I don't know, it was like 350 days out of a 360 plus, for the next year. And Aaliyah's in this new town and a rental home and twins, and it worked out. But man, it was, the lifeboats were on fire. We were just, crank the engine down, let's get out there and make some bad decisions. But I think though, what was interesting for those that stayed, the really cool thing is they saw this guy Joe come in. No one really understand. I mean, think about it. If you worked there and you knew I wasn't making payroll and I was just barely you talked to Colin, some of the people there, they had no idea. Like, I couldn't show it, right? I had to disclose to Joe, but he comes in and you just see this, like, all right, there is this cool camaraderie of we're going to find a way to win. And no one took anything for granted. No one took a sales opportunity for granted. Everybody wanted to win on every play, and we were doing it for each other. And I think that's you lose sight of that the bigger the company gets, right? And you start to look at percentages and averages. But back then, you had no choice but to win every logo. And I think that it's that burning the lifeboats, that commitment that we were making to each other that got us to where we are today. And it's that same commitment to the customer, that same kind of burn the lifeboats mentality that we use around innovation and just how we do things today.
Sure. Do you think, and this will be the kind of last question around this as we wrap up, but do you think that when it comes to making a pivot, being decisive, making that move, do you think, reflecting back, if you would have, well, let's not totally well, let's not totally get rid of the entire stream of
Yeah.
right? Do you think if you wouldn't have burned the boats, you would have ever found a way to where you are today, or did it required that?
No, I think the best decision I made was to shut it all the way down. And I just said, I believe in focus. I believe in focus. And there wasn't enough money, resources, and time for us to be great at two things. So you got to pick one. Like, you got to be all in. And I just think sometimes in life you got to sell out. You got to sell out to something. And, selling out to something, some people use that as a bad thing. Or I got to, I always like that saying that when you stand in the middle of the road, you're at risk getting hit by both sides of traffic, right? Yeah. So pick a lane. Like, I'm gonna pick a side, and that's what we did. And it was the right decision. It was rooted in the problem that we were solving for. We had belief of enough people with enough talent, with enough buy-in that were willing, right? And I'm glad those 4 people left, because they were going to sit on the fence, right? I don't want anybody. You don't want to burn cash on people. Oh, let's see if we win, then I'm all in. If we don't, then I told you so, right? Yeah. You don't need that. I mean, you don't need that ever. You darn sure don't need it in the beginning.
Yeah, that's such a great way to wrap this up. And Murph, you mentioned your decision-making framework. For those of you that have, subscribed, or maybe this is your first time, we've done that episode. You should go back and find it. It's really like how you've laid all that out, starting with what is the problem that I'm solving for. So, Murph, as always, thanks for joining us here on the No Show Dogs podcast.
Enjoyed it, buddy.
Yep. Go make it a great day.